Hello, Tim here, and welcome back to another painting demonstration tutorial, this time of a nighttime scene, an urban street scene based on Ouistreham in Normandy, northern France. Painting a nighttime scene in watercolor presents a few challenges that we don't have with a daytime painting. I can think of three really with this one. First of all, the color of the sky, the nighttime sky. It's not going to be black. The temptation is we reach for our ivory black or our Mars black or whatever, and we go in quite dark with that. Although alternatively, you can have some nighttime scenes where the actual landscape, the buildings, the ground is darker than the sky. The sky could be lighter, but in this example, the sky is darker. So what color am I going to use with that? I'm going to go through my color mixing with you. Secondly, the artificial lights, the car lights, the lights hanging against the walls of the buildings, and the lights that they're creating, the reflected light. How do we cover that? Do we go through with masking? I'm going to be using negative painting, so I'm going to be not using masking fluid. Never got on with masking fluid, but using my technique for painting around those lamps and car lights. Then edges, loads of soft edges. I'm going to be using, well, predominantly wet in wet, so very damp surface and adding in color, keeping on adding in color, going darker and darker and darker until I get it just right. Obviously with watercolor, we have to judge things just right because things do have a habit of drying a lot lighter than when we apply them. So watch me as I go through step by step in this demo with commentary along the way. Hope you can have a go. Certainly those of you on Patreon, looking forward to seeing the efforts from this. And at the end, stick around to the end where I'll give myself a little bit of a self-critique, the positives and the negatives that came out from it. First of all, then I'm going to dive into start of the demo and go through my materials. Materials I'm using, Saunders Waterford, recommended Saunders Waterford watercolor paper. This is cold press, £140, 300 grams, and it's 15 by 11 inches. Paints are from Mark Jackman in the UK. Normal palette of colours, neutral tint, burnt umber, burnt sienna, yellow ochre, spring green, virgin green, cobalt green, cerulean blue, cobalt blue, ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, cadmium red, light red, cadmium orange, cadmium yellow, lavender, and a couple of gouache paints. Bottom right-hand corner. I'm drawing my outline with a 3B pencil, and important point for me is getting in the overall composition, get that committed to the paper, and getting the drawing right before I start painting. So we've got the left, if I do the left-hand buildings first of all, quite a simple shape apart from those rooftop windows. They are about there, that the top of the wall that's facing us is something like that. Sides, make them parallel to the side of my paper, and then the angle down there, it's something like that, sort of almost 45 degree. The bottom of the building, street level, almost horizontal. The end of the street, now coming up the right-hand side, is a little bit steeper than the left. So, and it does go up a lot higher as well. There, horizontal with the top of the wall, and there's a rooftop window. Can't really see the edge of the roof. It's all hidden in the darkness up there. Bottom of the building is lower than the left-hand side. The right-hand side is lower. We've got the street coming down into those buildings like that. I'm not going to bother with the car on the right-hand side. Now, important point here is getting right the areas of the light. So we've got the car, first of all, and the headlights of the car. Let's draw them in like that, and then the reflection of the light is that area there. Going up the right hand side, there's a light there, and that's lighting up the side of the wall. The pavement curves around the corner of the building and shoots over to the right, then over on the left. Well, there's a sort of another building over there which is just lurking behind the left-hand building. We've got the rooftop windows. There's a post here. Figure. The figure is, so the waist of the figure is almost in line with the headlights on that kind of horizontal there. Get that figure in. Like that. So figure, and then the shadow of that figure is coming from that light, so something like that. That will be my shadow. I think on this building here, I get in just a little bit of the shop window, quite a simple doorway. And then window to the side of that. Up above, window and a couple of windows. That was a little bit darker. Left hand side, got a little line dividing the ground floor from the first floor. Get the perspective right. The top of the car is something like that. The bottom of the car, here we are. So a couple of headlights, reflected light, scattering of leaves in the foreground, catching the light, a little bit of shadow behind those. Yeah, I think that is about it for the drawing. There is a lamppost here. There's a few bollards. End of the street is, there's a little bit of a building showing and then darkness above it, but there's a line going across. Okay, I think that's it for the drawing. So my plan here with the painting is a lot of wet in wet. There's lots of soft edges around here, especially where we've got the edge of the lights. That's quite soft, and then soft edge there, quite soft the light with the shade either side of the light. So we need to go wet in wet. The top half of the scene is mainly, I would say, mainly warm. Not so sure about the sky right now. And then the bottom half of the scene, the road is quite cool, but on the pavement side, then there's a reflection of the building on the right hand side, just below where the figure. That's quite warm there as well. Right, so I will go over the whole scene with yellow ochre, and we'll just get progressively darker. Yellow ochre. I'm starting to think about the light as well. A little bit of yellow ochre on the right hand side. Just keep applying the paint, keeping the paper damp. I haven't pre-wet the paper. Now the bottom half is going to be cooler. Need to make sure I've got rid of all that yellow ochre on my brush. Right, cool. Cobalt blue, cerulean blue, and Yeah, it's quite cool here. So I apply plenty of cobalt blue, and then it gets a little bit warmer possibly. Actually burnt sienna, a little bit warmer towards the immediate foreground. A little bit of yellow ochre on that right hand side. So now that the almost the complete surface now is quite wet, and I can now start going a little bit darker. We'll start with a little bit of darkness below the car. The left-hand side here, let's concentrate on the foreground. Neutral tint, burnt umber. It's very dark there. It's very dark on the left-hand side, about a third of the way down. Quite dark in the bottom right corner. Obviously dark above in the sky. Right. So keep applying. Keep applying the paint. Start adding something to the sky. Neutral tint. Now, I don't want to go pure neutral tint. It's going to be a little bit too grey, too sort of charcoaly. So, now that might be too damp right now, so need to be very careful as I go towards these objects, unless I go less water. It's a case of now alternating between the top and the bottom. As one dries a little bit, I can go up to it and apply a little bit more paint. Continually working while that might be just a little bit too severe. Continually working while the surface is still quite damp. You can see that's moving quite a lot there. And so I'm glad I stopped when I did. That's still moving down into the lighter areas. That's got to dry a little bit up the top before I go back into it. Got a bit of a hard edge here, so I'm going to have to think about using a little bit of lifting out around that edge just to get that soft edge back again. Doesn't matter. Still go a little bit darker on the left hand side. Go back up to the top again. So this will be really dark for the sky. Predominantly neutral tint, a little bit of alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue. So what I'm using for the sky, a little bit of alizarin crimson, that can be quite strong. So go easy on that. A little bit of ultramarine blue, a little bit of burnt umber, and mainly neutral tint. Cut around the rooftop window. Yeah, it is getting a little bit dry now, so it's not, as I'm applying the paint, it's not moving so much. Careful up to this gable window on that left hand side. If it's going a little bit too dark, I can always lift out. A little bit of lifting off here just to go a bit lighter, and also that's going to dry up that edge so I can start to go in closer. Right, very important edge coming up. Coming down the street, and then the end of the street. Now these buildings need to be darkened a little bit. So still keeping with my mop brush, should have said my mop brush is a Tintoretto size 6 series 1407 synthetic mop brush. Right, now I need to go a little bit darker on these walls. Yellow ochre, a little bit of cadmium orange. Don't want to go too dark. Of course, it will dry a little bit lighter, so I need to be wary of that. Now a little bit redder, darker, halfway down. I guess it's the reflection of the brake lights of the car. Little bit of cooler blue just to the left of the car and then underneath the car. Still going a bit darker on that right hand side. We've got the shadow going across. Need to make sure I don't get any hard edges in that road. Just need to go a little bit lighter there. In fact, rather than lifting off with the tissue, I'll lift off with a synthetic brush. So this is all still damp where I am now. Just lift off a little bit of the rooftop windows on the left hand side. So dampen the synthetic brush, just lightly lift off. Think about perspective with those windows going down. That needs to be a little bit darker in there, that sort of alleyway. Just to the, oops, just to the left of that left-hand building. Right, I'm going to now dry this with a hairdryer, and then I can start adding in some more details and some harder edges. But I think I've got the, do I need to go a little bit darker there? Yeah, just a little bit darker, I reckon. And then a little bit darker. A little bit dark on that right hand side. That's quite light there. Just around the base of that figure. Okay, right, hairdryer. All right, so next we'll B. Details, got to define the car, got to get the figure in, maybe the bin. Windows and doors, define the little bits of details on the street, some street furniture, the edge of the pavement, the leaves catching the light as well. Yeah, a few little sort of bits and pieces to do, bring it together. Right, so predominantly I'm going to be with the small synthetic brush here. Might need to go back to the bigger mop brush here and there, but working with the small synthetic brush, quite thick paint now, and not a lot of water. Let's start on that left-hand side, and it's quite ornate curved window on that left-hand side. Too thick. Windows up here. And then down the left-hand building, a little bit of a trim at the top. Few windows down the left-hand building. There's two quite large windows there. Should really have drawn those in, but that's kind of roughly the spot. Now, defining the street level, going up to the car, a little bit more definition of that side. Doorway there, some sort of window, and then the kind of dividing line between the ground floor and the first floor. Few windows. We can't really see too much of the windows on this left-hand side. They're just sort of little marks, really. Now, down the end of the street here, not putting too much detail down here because it is the sort of background, so we want to keep it fairly simple. Car. Now this is an important bit here, the car. Let's go, it's quite dark, this car. Got to be careful going around the headlights, quite a hard edge at the top. Hardish edge at the bottom of the car. Okay. Gently around the car, quite dark. And then almost connecting with the shadow going across to the right. Now, we've got a few little lines going across the road. I need to soften up this edge here and around the headlights. So still with the synthetic brush, and make sure it's clean. So I've just washed it out in some clean water, and then just a little bit of clear water over the edge that I want to soften, and now just tease that a little bit. Could use a bit of this sponge as well, clean sponge, just to that's why it's a good idea to have good quality paper like Saunders too. It's quite tough. So we can just dampen it with the sponge, and then just lift off to get that soft edge. That's too hard there. So where I see hard edges, I can use this sponge to do that. Now the headlights, this is going to be a little bit more fiddly, but same principle. Just try and dampen the edge and just tease out the paint a little bit, just to get a little bit of a soft edge. Mind your fingers. needs to be quite light there on that corner. Now, similar principle with the lights, the lights attached to the building, and then we've got that light coming down. So quite a hard edge where the light is close to the wall, but then it gets a little bit softer. A little bit softer towards the street. Right, a little bit of detail to the buildings on the right. Two windows up in the roof. Two first floor windows, and then a line on just above the ground floor. The doorway. Oh, there's a kind of shop blind there. Right, back to the doorway. And then the window. Try and get some pointed corners. Might use the mop brush for this darker bit here. Yeah. Right, down below that window and doorway, it's quite dark there. So just define that a little bit more. And neutral tint burnt umber. Not too dark. And then using the point of the brush, trying to get a nice point there. And then out with a shadow. Define that a bit more. There's some warmer shadows on that right hand side. Could it be a shadow of a tree just over my right shoulder, possibly catching the light? Not so sure. Right, back to the small brush. And figure. And then a shadow, maybe just a little bit lighter than the figure. Now the light's there, so we've got the shadow going off to a slight angle like that. It's quite dark around the light. There we are. Right, let's define the gutter a bit more, the edge of the pavement. A few little bollards. There's the bin here. I didn't draw that in, but there's a bin, a waste bin here, just to the right of the figure. Get that one in, and then a shadow of that bin. Need to define this shop window just a little bit more. Corner of the shop. Now some little leaves on the ground, quite dark, and they're creating some quite long shadows, I guess from the headlight of the car. And there's a few lines going across the street. Now a little bit of light paint against those leaves, just on the other side, just where they're catching the light from the street light or the headlights of the car. Bit of white gouache for this, which is well and truly dried up in my palette here. Need to just get back to the white again, nearly there. And then just a little bit of light there might be just a little bit of light against these windows, just around the windows, just a tiny bit. Don't overdo it. Of course, with this gouache, it will dry a little bit darker. Manhole cover there. Just deciding whether to use this white gouache to just create the illusion of these bright lights. Yeah, got to be careful not to overdo it with the white gouache. It's a kind of white line going across there, where the two sections of the road are, I guess they're joined together. There are a few extra signs and pillars and things going on around, but I think I've essentially got the main essence of the place. Yeah, I'll just wrap up things here and let things dry, and then I'll give myself a little bit of a critique after when it's well and truly dried. Finished painting then. Nighttime in Ouistreham, Normandy, northern France. I think it turned out okay. I got the composition all right with the position of the car and then the other side, the balance of the figure. The artificial lights came out all right. Didn't use the masking technique, but just painted around the lighter objects and then tried to get that kind of softer edge. Let me just zoom in there. Which came out all right. A little bit untidy here. I think I shouldn't have drawn in the pencil line. That pencil line is still showing a little bit on that triangular piece that I drew first of all. So next time, maybe not actually drawing the shape of that. Likewise, did it appear here? No, I did that sort of triangular piece here. So the artificial lights came out all right. I strengthened these three with a little blob of white gouache. This light here, the main light here, perhaps I could have gone, rather than kind of border the light, maybe I could have gone a little bit darker above just to make it not so obvious that is some kind of a light up there. Colour of the sky, sort of okay. It's almost got the appearance of a moonlit night in a way, with that not ultra dark, this area here in the top left, this top left half there, it's not ultra dark, is it? But almost got the appearance of a kind of moonlit night. There should be a moon up there somewhere. This is a little bit heavy-handed here, this block here. That line there is a little bit too obvious. Maybe I should have done a little bit more working with the paint when the paper was still quite damp, and just so I've got no hard edges, a little bit of a hard edge there, and that sort of border around this building. But edges, quite happy with that around the rooftop windows and the buildings generally. The car came out okay, figure came out okay as regards the size, shadow, the edges of that, the reflected light from the car headlights, that came out okay. The leaves on the ground as well, that came out all right. It was actually winter, so these were, I think, leaves. I could have gone in with a little bit of light red or a cadmium orange just to make them a little bit more obvious as leaves rather than dark blobs, but on the whole, generally okay. Just be careful if you have a go. Don't go too strong with the white gouache on the left and the right side. They were quite dark in the picture. So don't go like over here on the left-hand side and the windows. I always get a bit nervous doing, when you've got white window frames, trying to make them too obvious with a bit of white paint. They kind of stand out just a little bit too much. The shop here could have done, for authenticity, I could have had some French writing there. The lines on the pavement, the street furniture there, that came out all right. Nice colour of the buildings. Kind of, it sort of matches the colour of that sort of warm colour of the buildings in Ouistreham in Normandy. Yeah, I hope you liked the demo. And certainly those of you on Patreon, have a go. And looking forward to seeing the result of your efforts. Enjoyed doing this nighttime scene. Well, I'll certainly do some more in the future. But thanks for watching, and I'll catch up with you on the next video. Cheers. Bye-bye.